I just wanted to really share what my experience has been all my life. And the paradox or the funny thing is that it's always been a rediscovering of what I already know to be true in the first place.
Right.
And it's only that it seems deeper, less deep, whatever, but it always has to be there in some form or other. Otherwise, my life just feels meaningless. And I can't stand that feeling of meaninglessness. And it can happen anywhere and anyhow, but it basically is very difficult to describe what it is. But it's so normal and it's so real, and it's yet everybody, and it's as if there are no. I the, I feel my best when I feel there's no need for the mind to go blabbering on and defining things for me, but just to
Yes.
have the
Yes.
experience. And it sounds very complicated to say it like that, but it's so simple. I don't want to give
Mm.
the impression it's complicated, because it isn't. And what I'm just doing, what I'm just really trying to do, is to keep rediscovering what I know to be true in the first place. And that's pretty well all the time in one form or another. And satsang is so valuable to me because I can share, maybe it's the atmosphere or whatever it is, but be with people who are interested in the same thing. It makes it much stronger and makes it easier. Because for me,
Yes.
100% of this is not anything great that I do, because I don't do anything particularly, but it's just the hunger for it, the desire. That's 100% for me. It's the longing that will give it to me, nothing else.
That's fantastic. And what you can also do with the longing is recognizing that the longing is actually it.
Yeah,
Like rather than fulfill the longing, embrace completely longing, and longing is it, because
yeah,
there is nothing to get, and the longing is the celebration of self.
yeah,
And when you feel longing, you just completely relax into the sense of longing. And the same for the sense of when meaningless arises.
mm,
um, Meaningless contains all of the meaning of the entire universe in a single sensation. You just completely allow full meaningless to it to be as it is. I often use the word allow. Sometimes I use rest as awareness, but I like allow because allowing is the primary activity of pure consciousness or awareness is to allow, like the space in this room or the screen of this computer. Its primary activity is it allows. It doesn't resist
mm,
any of the images. It doesn't resist any of the colors. It just allows them to appear, and they are welcome as long as they want to be. The screen never says, I can't wait until uh, Joe stops talking. God, this computer's like, I want to get rid of that. Or it's not there going, oh, I really, really want Laura to talk next. It just allows. So when we allow, we automatically align with our nature as awareness instantly. As soon as you allow anything, you are awareness. And I think most people here either know that or they have a sense of that.
mm.
But it becomes very apparent when you do what awareness does, which is to allow everything to be as
Yep,
it is.
yep, yep.
And that feels to me what is the practice. And the last thing I said about what you said is that from what I can understand of all the teachers I've ever studied, of every avenue that I've looked in, when someone has that longing, which another term for that is bodhicitta, which is the desire to awaken. And everybody here has that. When someone has that, it will be fulfilled. Like it's 100%, it will be fulfilled. If you have a strong commitment to understanding your nature, then it will because it is your nature. We're not trying to gain something here. We're trying to want of a better word, to set aside what we've already been trained or learned to be, to discover how things really are. And this is a process of inquiry. And there's, as I said before, there's two paths of inquiry. There's the inward path. Do I exist? Which we call Advaita Vedanta. They all cover everything, but their primary vehicle in Advaita Vedanta is there's a dissolving of the self, the recognition that there is no self. And the outward path, there's different styles, but one of the profound ones is Dzogchen, but Tantra is an outward path. Does the other exist? Does the other exist? And both of those journeys lead you to the same emptiness, which is Ananda, right? The release of self, the release of other, and then you start to just rest in your own nature while you're literally living within an illusory like world. So we're never going to be able to completely accurately describe our experience because
No.
the words don't exist.
No.
But as Lee mentioned earlier, the understanding of your nature appears as a greater spaciousness. And as I said earlier, an ease with whatever's appearing. You can always tell when you're attached to a sense of self or you're attached to a sense of object, is you will feel suffering, right? And suffering normally, to make it more clear, suffering normally appears as avoidance. So you can look wherever you're avoiding things in your life is where you are reifying things into existence, right? And I've always got some funny stories about this, but I literally used to say to people, like, that's empty, that's empty, that's a pizza, that's empty, that's empty. So it's like certain things, I couldn't see through them. And you have that, all the humans here, you will have different areas where you are more easily hooked back into self, thought, feeling, and things, right? That's things with it, like as a Londoner, it's like FINGS, but things, thoughts, feelings, and things. And everyone has a greater attachment to one of those. So the first thing that dissolved for me almost completely was things. I could absolutely see that no object has an inherent nature. It's just so clear to me. It didn't require any explanation. It's just obvious, right? Then thoughts was better for me but I was lucky in a way that you might find strange. My thoughts were so outrageous growing up in a sort of lock, stock, and two smoking barrels type environment that my way of thinking was obviously had no validity. And I'm very open about it. Why that person looking at me? Like this kind of stuff. Right? I was lucky. I could see, wow, these thoughts are nonsense. So all of the thinking space cleared. So I felt very free around objects, and I felt very, very free around my own thinking. And then the next one was the feelings. And that was much, much denser for me to see through feelings. Feelings were so real, and different types of feelings. So after a while, I found that the first strong feeling to go was anger. I just stopped being able to become very angry like I used to be able to be. And then sadness, that went away. And all of the emotions cleared, right? But a couple remained. Cravings. I think cravings, it's still there now, but that went on for at least a decade after everything else resolved. And that's why I say that joke. That's pure space. That's pure space. That's a pizza. That's pure space. That's pure space. But it's good that you're laughing, because the whole point of this is when you had that initial awakening, or when you start to see that these appearances, that they're not who you are, you can really enjoy discovering the self that you have. Like when I used to think I was the self, I was an angry, somewhat unhappy, hot-headed, kind of unpredictable and extremely addicted, wounded character, but had a lot of talent, so I could get myself into a good career, right? But when I believed I was that, it was suffering. When I realized that I don't exist independent of pure space, that was the most soothing experience I've ever had, to recognize that all of that troubled self was just an appearance indivisible from pure love. Pure love, right? They're synonymous. So you really, you go through a process of great compassion for the self you've taken yourself to be, and all of the suffering around being that person, right? To whatever degree that is. Some it's less, some it's more. But once you see through that, then it's never personal again. It's literally the clock is ticking a bit slow. Let's fix it, right? So I mentioned the ADHD as well, and so did Lee. When I discovered I had ADHD, well after my awakening, so there was never any grief, regret, remorse, sadness. I was like, oh, that's an interesting room I've not been in. Let's explore that. And I immediately got myself an ADHD coach, and I spent 2 years working out what I could change and what I couldn't. And I changed what I could. But it was a really deeply enjoyable and satisfying process, filled with happiness, even discovering you have something that has been somewhat detrimental, even to my teaching career. I realized the ADHD was one of the reasons why I didn't teach for years, because I just couldn't get it together to do it. So without going too far astray, the initial awakening is where I suggest you pay attention to. So you start asking yourself, what is me? What isn't me? When this experience, like for the self, the one that is looking, you have to ask yourself, if I can see this, can it be me? So if I'm in an angry mood and I can witness that, can I be the anger? And if the anger fades, what remained? If the separate self is no longer angry, but I'm still noticing that, how can I be that? How can I possibly be what's changing? And you get great confidence in this. You really start to see it's so preposterous that you can be the thing that's changing, because you wouldn't be able to witness it because you would change with it, right? But you know you're not. You know you're not. Externally, something appears into your life, like this ADHD timer with the nice little visual thing, right? That's appeared in your life, but it's gone now. Did you go? Right? And think about everything in your life like that: your car, the last house you lived in, your relationships, the last view. Just all you've got to do is turn around, and all what's over there's gone. Right? So if it goes, what remains? And this is the inquiry. If my internal environment, my emotions, things are always changing, yet I'm noticing it, am I that? And if I look outside and I see the whole world is constantly changing, yet I'm still there observing it, can I be that? I'm not going to obviously answer it because you know my answer, but this is the inquiry that you can do simultaneously, and you arrive at an unshakable conclusion that you are the knower of experience. You are no longer, at that point, you are no longer the subject of experience. That is the difference. That's what stops suffering. When you believe you are the subject of experience, then your world is made up of things that are going to happen to you. And some are good and some are bad. And there's a really bad one on the horizon that we're all going to face, the tsunami of non-existence, right? That's in the, so you spend this life as a subject. Oh, I didn't like that. Oh, I did like that. Oh, I want that. Oh, that never happened. Oh, I regret that. Oh, I never had kids. Oh, I had kids and they were stupid. Or whatever it might be. Whatever it might be. Or they were brilliant. Or they were brilliant. Whatever it is. But it's all happening to you. And that's the definition of suffering. And you have to ask yourself, is it really happening to me? Like, is it really happening to me? It really is fascinating to look at this. Is it really happening to me? And where I explore this is after each experience. So I just had my dinner about an hour ago now. After each experience, I ask myself, where is it now? Where is it now? I had a massage earlier. I should get more because I do live in Thailand, but I don't go. But I did go today. Fantastic massage, $5. Where is it now? Where is anything you've ever experienced? Endless flow of emptiness happening to no one. and this is where you can get the sense of meaningless, which I know you had a different example, but I'm just going to say this, is that can feel, well, what's the point? Because the happiness, which is what we started this discussion with, is the whisk of the now, the flickering of the flame of the now. That the happiness is the dissolution, that the knowing of it, the knowing of the insubstantial appearances is happiness. You've all sat on a vista just looking out to sea or wherever, and you're just enjoying it. That's nature's way of giving us a satsang, right? But that's the same as when you're in the office or at the party or visiting relatives. It's the same. There is a continual flow of exquisite beauty flying by at all times without describing it. The flicker of life constantly in flux, never crystallizing. It never becomes solid. Nothing ever becomes solid, right? They dissolve. They dissolve upon appearing, right? It's called freedom in the immediacy of perceiving. The freedom, we've gone a bit deeper than I wanted to today, but I'm here. It's the freedom in the perception as it dissolves. It dissolves upon upon perception. That is what we are enjoying in life. And if you go there and look at life from that, the constant movement dissolving, simultaneous. There's no time involved here. It's simultaneous. And you watch that, that's Ananda. That's Ananda. And from that perspective, I like to call it a throne, because it's a very majestic asana to be in. When you perceive from there, you're perceiving as the knower of experience, then all of the wisdom that you could ever possibly want becomes available in making decisions around your life and what you should do next and how you can be of benefit or what's helpful for you, because there's a complete non-attachment to the array that was always in flux. And it's the flux, like, it's very difficult to extract. I do my best to describe it. It's like what a human being is the juncture of the knowing and the known. So we're not a thing, we're an activity at the juncture of the knowing and the known. That is happiness.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. That resonates. The last thing you said, definitely. Yeah. It's was there some famous scientists that said the optimal experience is just on the cusp of learning and knowing and knowing things. It rings a similar sort of bell anyway. This is like, I can't remember the name.
I get. I've heard something about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is.
I know it's not exactly the same thing, but it's just like,
it's related. Yeah. It's related.
Yeah.
This is where art, poetry, music is really helpful, because it can help convey things that. I do realize I do have some capacity with my words, and I try to use them to be of benefit by describing this experience in a way that can resonate. But sometimes just art can do it. Looking at an incredible sculpture or painting or a piece of music or something like that, because the knowing of what I've just described, it's actually beyond the mind. Like, I'm not sure if the mind ever gets to, the brain. I'm not sure if the brain ever gets to experience that. I think it sort of goes a little bit offline. And that's what art, poetry, music can do. And perhaps satsangs as well. So it's really just, whenever you remember, let things be as they are, and then pay attention to whatever appears as a result of taking that posture. Now, I have recently started using the word posture a lot, because I want to reawaken Patanjali's teachings, who was a great sage, and the Yoga Sutras are extremely powerful. And in the Yoga Sutras, there are no physical asanas, but he does use the word asana. And what he's referring to when he discusses asana is what I describe as leaving everything as it is. You have a posture, your asana is a posture of openness, availability, non-attachment. And then yoga, from sutra number 2, is yoga chitta vitri namaroda. So yoga, the union or the awakening, is the mastery of the appearances of mind. Now, namroda is often translated as control. And that's where people started to meditate, to try and control the appearances of mind. But anyone, raise your hand if you think you can control the appearances of mind. Like, you could say to someone, I will give you £1 million if you can think about an orange for 5 minutes. Like, most people would lose that bet. If they had a way to track it, most people would struggle with 60 seconds. So you can't control your mind, but the mastery comes from the posture toward the appearances, the posture of like, I am the majesty, I am chitta, consciousness, the majesty, and the appearances are my dynamic energy, and I don't need to control them because they are me. If everything is made of milk, you don't have to avoid spilling milk, and you certainly won't cry over spilt milk if everything is made of milk, including like everything. In Tibet, they used the saying, on an island of gold, everything is made of gold, which I find very powerful. So whatever thoughts are appearing, gold. Whatever losses you are enduring, gold. Whatever enjoyment you are experiencing, gold. Whatever pain you are facing, gold. On an island of gold, everything is made of gold. In awareness, in consciousness, everything is made of consciousness, including you, the knower, and the separate self that you are aware of. It's all made of consciousness only. And when you really deeply experience this knowing in your life, you start to feel safe. You start to feel safe for perhaps the first time in your life, because you realize that on an island of awareness, everything's made of awareness. So whatever appears to be acting against you as a subject is just awareness, right? On a movie, everything is made of screen. This is why we can enjoy extremely negative movies, because we know that whatever's happening on the screen is made of screen. So even in a very sad movie that we perhaps cry, which we've probably all done, there's still a sense that it was all made of screen. And that is a direct comparison to what happens to your approach to life. You realize that because there's only this, that whatever's happening is happening sort of, but not absolutely. And that takes the edge off everything, in the same way watching a movie does, because no one could watch some of the movies that they make if you didn't know it was a screen. And this is the same with your own life, that when you start to recognize, you start to notice the inseparable nature of all experience, including yourself, from awareness, then the edge is removed and all experience becomes manageable. And then you add what we said earlier, that you realize it also leaves no trace. And it's also dissolving on appearance. Then these little realizations begin to change your whole way of being, until you start to develop, and some of you probably already have this, there is an instinctive recognition. So there isn't even the processing of the moment. to find insight. It's instinctive. It becomes devoid of thinking about it. It's just instinctive. Like, you don't even recognize, like you stop. This is a bit unusual, but you stop even realizing you're awake. Like, it just becomes, you're just not suffering or grasping, or you have the same tone of experience all the time. You're always in that tone of clarity all the time, even if your causes and conditions are playing up, and maybe you smoke too much or something. That clarity doesn't abate. It becomes even more brighter all the time. And from that piercing clarity, you are able to make amends for any of the causes and conditions that you have that cause detriment to others. Right? It's really fascinating. And I don't know if many people talk about it like this, but it's you feel clear. You are instinctively recognizing the nature of reality, so you're not falling into mood swings or difficulties or things, but occasionally one of your old triggers will be ignited, and you might have a tendency, but because the clarity's there, it catches the tendency while it's appearing, and then you make amends if you acted on it. You spoke harshly to someone, or more and more you catch it before it even becomes an action. So it's a very beautiful place, and it never ends. There's no arrival. It never ends. You just like the last thing I'll say about it is one way I could describe it. It would be like, and this is a guess, but it's like if a baby had the same knowledge that you had about things, but retained its awe, right? It cries if it needs to cry, and it stops immediately, right? It is completely perceptually open to all experience, right? Everything is a curiosity. Nothing has a label. Nothing has a label. It just appears, and it's, wow, look at this thing, right? So it's that sort of openness, but with the wisdom of an adult and the discernment of an adult. But at the same time, there's a very free and available spaciousness in which to respond to life. And all of this together creates this sense of happiness, which is what we started with. It creates a sense of happiness that doesn't falter, because it's not dependent on what's appearing. Thank you, Mac. And thank you, everyone, for coming to Satsang. And we will be doing it again next Sunday, same time. And if I do have to cancel, thank you so much. If I ever have to cancel, I will this time message the people who registered before I cancel the event. Anyway, thank you so much. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.